Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. Every week I bring you an episode of this series where I talk about the top 5 transfer targets for the upcoming week. However, this week I'm going to try something slightly different, so do let me know down in the comments if you prefer it like this or you want me to go back to the old way of doing it. But because Antonio and DCL are the two players that are probably going to miss out due to obviously Antonio's suspension for 1 week and DCL likely having a long-term injury with his toe and his quadricep. As a result, most managers will own either one or both of these players. So the focus of today's episode is going to be on replacement strikers. And I'm going to be looking at doing some comparisons between different strikers at different price points. So no matter which price point you're looking at replacing Antonio and DCL with, I should have you covered in this video. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. So guys, something slightly different today. As I said in the introduction, we're going to be doing some battles or comparisons of sorts between two different players at similar price points as potential replacements for Antonio and DCL. Now, the reason I've done that is a lot of us will be looking to replace Antonio and DCL, but we might have different team structures, different budgets, and be looking to spread funds elsewhere. So I didn't just want to compare lots of players at the same price point. So what we've done is we've got two players at basically similar price points in Bamford and Jimenez, basically direct replacements for Antonio and DCL. We've then got two players at 6.5 million if we want to get some of the funds out of the attack. And then we've got two players around the 6 million price point as well. So you've got two direct replacements, two 6.5s, and two very, very cheap options. So hopefully that should help you no matter what price you're looking at. Of course, if you have the funds and you want to get Ronaldo or Lukaku in by downgrading elsewhere, you can do that as well. They won't be covered in today's video because all I would essentially be saying is they're brilliant players with brilliant underlying stats with good fixtures coming up. So if you've got the funds and you want to get Ronaldo and Lukaku, by all means do it. So the focus for this first little section is Bamford and Jimenez, who as I said before, are basically direct replacements for Antonio and DCL at that sort of price point. They're favoured by a lot of managers. I think this will be the most favourable move coming up. And the main reason for that is the fixtures for Leeds and Wolves coming up are absolutely fantastic. And it is quite difficult to separate the two. Now, the fix algorithm prefers the fixtures for Leeds from an attacking perspective in comparison to Wolves. Now, probably the main reason for that is the three really, really favourable fixtures in Newcastle, Watford and Norwich in the next 6 for Leeds. Whereas for Wolves, probably the only key standout favourable fixture is in game week 7 against Newcastle. So for Leeds coming up, they've got Newcastle, West Ham, Watford, Southampton, Wolves and Norwich. All 6 of those fixtures are arguably captainable material, but none of those stand out as terrible fixtures. West Ham and Wolves probably the two most difficult, but I wouldn't say either of those I'd expect Leeds to struggle to score against. We know Leeds are quite a free-flowing sort of attack, so I expect Leeds to do very, very well, and that's probably why they're favoured by the fix algorithm. Wolves have Brentford, Southampton, Newcastle, Villa, Leeds and Everton. Again, none of those 6 are difficult fixtures, so I don't think for either of these strikers you'd have any difficulty whatsoever starting them over the next 6 fixtures. What I would say that perhaps favours Jimenez slightly over Bamford is that after these 6 fixtures, after game week 10, Wolves' kind fixture run does continue, whereas Leeds start to encounter some difficult fixtures. So if you're looking at sort of the next 6 or 7 fixtures, I think I favour Bamford's fixtures. I think I favour Leeds. However, if you're looking for a long-term hold, perhaps you're playing your wildcard this week, I might just about favour Jimenez because he's more of a long-term hold. You could hold him for 10 or 15 fixtures. So I think if I was on wildcard, I think my front three would be Ronaldo, Bamford and Jimenez. I think I'd try and have both of the strikers. However, if you can only have one, I think I'd favour Bamford for the short-term fixtures, Jimenez for long-term fixtures. If we look at underlying statistics, again, there's not that much to separate the two. Total minutes played and projected points are obviously separate, but the other 4 statistics I've listed here are per 90 statistics from the first 4 game weeks just to mitigate for playing time differences. Total minutes played, Raul Jimenez does just beat Bamford. He's played 90 minutes in every game, and Jimenez is about as nailed as they come. Bamford is prone to some early subs sometimes if he's suffering with some injuries. And also, he does have the slight competition. Again, not much for competition, but slight competition from Rodrigo and Tyler Roberts. Whereas I don't think Jimenez's backups in Fabio Silva is quite as adept in that position anyway. So Jimenez is the slightly more nailed, but I expect both to start most minutes. I would just like to note at this point, Bamford was holding his hamstring towards the end of game week 4. And there's a slight quote just before one of his interviews. He said that his hamstring was pinging. There's a quote where he says, "My hamstring's pinging." Now, pinging can just mean it's a bit sore. It might have just been a bit tight. It could be absolutely nothing, but I would personally wait for Bielsa's press conference before bringing Bamford in, because if there is any niggle, I wouldn't be surprised if they start with Rodrigo or Tyler Roberts up top, or potentially Bamford might only get 60 minutes against Newcastle. So I would wait for the press conference before bringing him in, but it might not be anything. But I felt like I should share that information with you guys. Projected points over the next 6 game weeks. Again, this is Fix's algorithm. We try and predict how many points the player's going to get based on underlying statistics and also difficulty of the opposition. Bamford does lead Jimenez by over 8 points. Now, the reason for that is probably, again, the difficulty of fixtures. The Fix algorithm prefers Leeds fixtures, and also Bamford's underlying statistics are slightly better from the first 4. So Bamford's predicted to get 27.4 points over the next 6, whereas Jimenez is predicted to get 19.2 points over the next 6 game weeks. Expected FPL points from the first 4. So this is underlying statistics from the first 4 fixtures. Bamford does just about lead Jimenez with 4.12 expected FPL points per 90, whereas Jimenez is expected to get 3.64. So to be honest, neither of those are particularly great, but both Leeds and Wolves have had some tough fixtures in the first 4 game weeks. Obviously, Bamford has had Man United and Liverpool. Jimenez has had Leeds, Spurs, Leicester and Manchester United. So both players have had some tough fixtures. Either way, though, they're not great underlying statistics with respect to expected FPL points. Interestingly, Raul Jimenez actually beats Bamford over the first 4 fixtures for non-penalty expected goals plus expected assists. So this is basically a combination of how many goals they're expected to score, how many assists they're expected to get, and you put it into one metric over the first 4 fixtures. Now, the reason that Jimenez beats Bamford at 0.48 to 0.41 respectively is because Jimenez has slightly more creative threat. So Jimenez is expected to get a lot more assists, and his expected assists actually outweighs expected goals. Whereas for Bamford, he's had very, very little creative threat, but he's had very, very impressive expected goals. He's had very, very impressive expected goal threat in the first 4 fixtures. So again, Jimenez just outweighs Bamford, but remember, strikers get more points per goal. So really, you want the higher goal threat, and Bamford is just leading the way for goal threat, but still very, very tight between the 2 players. Where Bamford does come into his own is he has 0.52 big chances per 90. So he's having almost 1 big chance per 2 fixtures, which again isn't overwhelming particularly, but it does sort of out-trump Jimenez's 0.25 big chances per 90. So if you're looking again at who's getting those clear-cut one-on-one sort of opportunities, Bamford does lead the way in comparison to Jimenez, who's taken a lot of shots, but he's not getting a lot of clear-cut opportunities. The final statistic is touches in the box per 90. Very, very close again. Jimenez is getting 6.5 touches in the box per 90 in comparison to Bamford's 5.97. They're both very, very impressive. That's a lot of touches in the 90. In the box per 90. But again, they're both sort of out and out strikers. They're both leading number 9. So this is very, very impressive for both. And this is the main reason that I would favour getting one of these in above other strikers, is they will get good opportunities. And even if they're not getting great opportunities, they're still getting in the box a lot and taking a lot of shots. So I really like both options. If I had to favour one, I would just about favour Bamford if he is fit. I just think he's got slightly higher upside, and I think the fixtures are slightly better for Leeds. If I'm being honest, I'd want both of them. So if there's an opportunity to get both in, if you're on wildcard or you don't have to take a hit to do so, I really, really like both players. And again, if you can't afford Bamford, I also like Jimenez as sort of a cheaper option. So don't be worried if you can't afford Bamford. I do think Jimenez is a great option as well. But in my opinion, I'd really like both of these guys. So the next comparison is between £6.5 million forwards. And I think there are 2 that stand out. But they are 2 players that I know a lot of managers, I'm sure I'll get in the comments as well, sort of laugh at them. They're not feasible options. They never deliver on what they promise. They might look good. They might have good underlying statistics and good fixtures, but they never deliver. And those players are Maupay and Alan Saint-Maximin. Now, Maupay in particular has been someone that, again, a lot of managers have just said, I will never go near him again. He always gets sent off or injured, or he just doesn't deliver on his underlying statistics. But this season, he scored 2 goals, albeit they were in the first 2 game weeks. And he's looked pretty decent, and he's played 90 minutes in quite a few of the games as well. So he looks fairly nailed, I would say. Saint-Maximin is, of course, the more nailed player. I can't see any reason in the world where he would ever be dropped. I think he'll see out 90 minutes in most games. But I would say that both players are fairly nailed, and both have sort of mixed fixtures coming up. Now, Brighton and Maupay in particular have 4, I would say, really nice fixtures coming up over the next 4 game weeks. But then the fixtures do start to turn for them. You can see in game week 9 and game week 10, they've got City and Liverpool. So Maupay is probably sort of a more short-term option. So if you're looking to play your wildcard potentially in game week 8, for example, or game week 7, you could go with Maupay. Saint-Maximin, I would say, has more mixed fixtures over the next 5 to 10 game weeks, but they're sort of spread out with difficult fixtures and easy fixtures and difficult fixtures. So I do think that Saint-Maximin's potential goal threat and assist threat has probably gone down since Callum Wilson's been injured. It makes him even more nailed if he needed to be, but I think that link up with Wilson might have been something that would see him get a lot more assists and goals. But anyway, so Maupay's fixtures coming up are Leicester, Palace, Arsenal, Norwich over the next 4, really nice. And then as I said, City and Liverpool in the next 2. So not great over the next 6, I wouldn't say, if you consider City and Liverpool in 9 and 10. Saint-Maximin has Leeds, Watford, Wolves over the next 3. Again, really nice immediate fixtures, but then Tottenham, Palace and Chelsea. So again, neither of these fixtures are particularly great, but at 6.5 million, again, you're looking probably as someone that you just want to hold over the next few, and you could play as your third striker or potentially bench. Projected points-wise, very, very close. Saint-Maximin is just favoured, probably due to the fixtures by the fix algorithm. Expected FPL points, I almost didn't want to use a colour scheme here because it was so similar over the first 4 game weeks. Neil Maupay, 3.82. Saint-Maximin, 3.83. So they've basically... they're very, very different players, but they've essentially performed identically with respect to expected FPL points per 90 over the first 4. And then non-penalty XG and XA, again, are so similar. 0.40 for Saint-Maximin and 0.39 for Maupay. So you're essentially looking at 2 strikers who have basically performed exactly the same with respect to underlying statistics combined. Now, what I would say is, whilst these are very, very similar, Saint-Maximin has a much higher creativity threat and Maupay has a much higher goal threat. And it was similar to the Bamford and Jimenez discussion we've just had. So while Saint-Maximin is leading because of his creativity, I think these underlying statistics slightly favour Maupay just because he's more of a goal threat. And again, you're more likely to pick up bonus if you score, and you obviously get more points, outright points from a goal as well. So, and this is shown in the other statistics. Big chances per 90. Maupay leads the way with 0.57. Saint-Maximin at 0.25. Again, very similar to Bamford and Jimenez. Neil Maupay, similar to Bamford, is leading the way with goal threat. Saint-Maximin is leading the way with creativity, similar to Jimenez. Touches in the box, very, very close. But Maupay, again, because he's more of an out-and-out striker, is leading the way with 4.57, which is pretty decent. And Saint-Maximin with 4. So if I'm looking at these 2 players again, I think just because of the goal threat, I might slightly lean towards Neil Maupay. However, Saint-Maximin, I think, has that high ceiling. He's the sort of player, when he's on it, and if he can deliver on his end product, could get 2, potentially 3 returns in one game. And I think Leeds and Watford are better than Leicester and Crystal Palace across the next 2. Very, very tough one. It depends what you're looking for in your player, but I do think that both are feasible options. So if you can't afford or you want to downgrade and you don't want to go for Bamford or Jimenez, I do really like Maupay and Saint-Maximin. It's up to you which of the 2 you want to go for. So guys, the final comparison is the cheapest strikers that I think you should be going for. I know, again, you can comment below if you disagree with this, but I know Dennis is potentially an option. I think it's 5.2 million. I've got a couple of issues with that. I think Watford have tons of potential options in the striking position. Even after Deeney left, I still think they've got a lot of options. João Pedro coming back, King. I know Dennis can play out on the left as well, but I just think there's potential rotation in the future. Cucho as well. So I wouldn't personally be looking to get Dennis in. I just think it's a transfer waiting to happen. And the other issue is there just aren't any other options at that price. So if he does get dropped, but you need him to play, you've then got to make like 2 transfers to end up upgrading him to the likes of Armstrong and Pukki. So for me, I think the cheapest I'd want to go is Pukki and Armstrong at 5.9 and 6 million respectively. So very, very interesting options in Armstrong and Pukki because they've both got pros, but they've also both got cons, and they sort of are the opposite of each other. So if we're looking at fixtures coming up, again, they're basically the opposite of each other. Norwich's best fixtures are over the next few. Southampton's best fixtures are in a few game weeks. So I think if you're looking to make a transfer this week and you've still got your wild card to play, I think based on the fixtures, I would be looking at Teemu Pukki. I just think Watford, Everton, Burnley, Brighton over the next 4. And then if I was going to play my wild card in 8, I really like those in comparison to Armstrong, who's got City, Wolves, Chelsea, Leeds in the next 4. So I'd say this probably depends on when you're playing your wild card, if you've already played it, how long you want to hold this player, and whether you're willing to use transfers on this player in the future. Because I think if you're just looking for a long-term hold, as we'll get to in a minute, the statistics and the teams, etc., I just think Armstrong's the best value at that price. I think if you can get over the fact that he's got City, Wolves, Chelsea in the next 3, and you can potentially bench him, or you just want to play him and hope that Southampton score, I really like Armstrong. And the fixtures from game week 8 onwards, you can see just in the first 3, Leeds, Burnley and Watford in 8, 9 and 10. I really like those, but just the fixtures over the next few aren't great. if we're looking at how nailed the two strikers are, really interestingly, something we didn't see when Norwich were first in the Prem is that Pukki is coming off early in quite a few of the games. So I think he's been taken off before 80 minutes in 3 of the fixtures. He's coming off around like the 70th, 75th minute. So he's by no means like nailed to play the full 90, but I would still be surprised if Pukki doesn't start every game. It just looks like because he's obviously getting on a little bit in age and they're looking to try and freshen things up in the sort of final 20 minutes. I think Pukki is definitely going to be prone to rotation in that final part of the game. Armstrong has come off early in one of the games, but I think he's more nailed to play more minutes than Pukki this season, in my personal opinion. So in the first 4, he's played 344 minutes. Pukki's played 317. Similar to the guys we just looked at, projected points-wise, Armstrong and Pukki are very, very close. Pukki just leads the way, and I think that's probably because of penalties. He's been on penalties. Obviously, that needs to be entered into the underlying statistics for the algorithm. And I think the fixtures over the next 6, just because of how difficult those first 3 are for Southampton, are probably better for Norwich. Expected FPL points-wise, Pukki does just beat Armstrong with 4.06 to 3.82. Now, what I would like to make clear is in expected FPL points, this does take into account penalties, and we know Pukki had a penalty. So if you take the penalties out, Armstrong's underlying statistics are better. But of course, that is an added advantage that we do need to note with Pukki, is that he does have penalties. And if you're someone that takes that into account when making decisions, that might make you lean towards Teemu Pukki. However, underlying statistics wise, if you take away penalties and you look at non-penalty expected goals plus expected assists, Pukki's is pretty terrible at 0.17. Now, they haven't had the easiest fixtures in the first 4, Norwich. That's probably an understatement. They've had very, very tough fixtures. But Norwich aren't a team that are going to create a lot of chances. And I don't think his underlying statistics at any point this season, if you take away penalties, will probably get close to Armstrong. Armstrong, I think, is probably outperforming his price bracket. And I think when the fixtures do start to turn for Southampton around game week 8, I think he's going to be a bargain. And I'm looking at potentially playing my wildcard in game week 8. And when I look at a 0.47 non-penalty expected G plus expected assist per 90, I'm definitely going to consider having Armstrong as my 3rd striker from game week 8 onwards. So underlying statistics-wise there, expected goal involvements, Armstrong's much, much better than Pukki. Big chances-wise, again, Pukki does outperform Armstrong, but that is because of the penalty. If you take that penalty out of the equation, big chances-wise, Armstrong would outperform Pukki. And I think 0.52 big chances per 90 for Armstrong without penalty is very impressive. But again, if he did have the penalty, and Pukki will continue to get penalties throughout the season. He might not get a lot, but you do need to take that into account. Touches in the box, Armstrong does outperform Pukki, again, without that 1 from the penalty. But I don't think either of these are particularly impressive. Both players having less than 4 touches in the box per 90. But again, they're at a cheaper price, and you do have to take this into account. They're not going to have the underlying statistics of the likes of Calvert-Lewin, Bamford, Jimenez, Wilson, because they're cheaper. So for me, I know it might look like I'm a bit biased here because I keep on giving you reasons to go for Armstrong. I think if I was going for it this week and I was looking short term, I'd actually go for Pukki just because of the fixtures. I just wouldn't really want to play Armstrong in game week 5 or 7 against City and Chelsea. And even game week 7 against, even game week 6 against Wolves, I don't think that's a great fixture. So for me, if you're looking for a long-term hold and you just want to hold a player for the next 15, Armstrong's your guy. If you're looking for a short-term punt, I like Pukki. And I think if you're looking to wildcard in game week 7 or game week 8 and you're just looking for a transfer for the short period over the next 3 or 4 game weeks, I prefer Pukki as well. So it does very, very much depend on what you're looking for from this cheap striker. But I do think both of these players are viable options over the next few game weeks. So guys, there you have it. Those are the top transfer targets with respect to who I would be looking to replace Antonio and DCL with. It's worth noting that if you can hold Antonio, I think it might be worth doing it. His fixtures from game week 6 and 7 onwards are really, really nice. And I think there aren't many better strikers at that price. There aren't many better strikers in the game. So if you can afford to bench him in game week 5, I might be tempted to hang on to Antonio. And if you do own DCL, you can then focus on removing him because obviously his injury looks like it could be 3 or 4 game weeks long. So that's my personal opinion on it. If you did like this type of video where I compare 2 players and do more of a battle style than when I just present 1 player at a time, let me know and I can do it in the future. Hopefully it wasn't too much information on the screen with the graphics. Hopefully you guys still enjoy this style of video. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do like, comment and subscribe and enable notifications so that you know when our videos go live. And we do create daily content. So if you do like daily FPL content and you're always looking for something to watch, look no further than this channel. But I will catch you in the next video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.